Okay, going into part 4 of chapter 5, on page 139, corrective feedback in the classroom. Recasting is one of the common ways to give feedback, which is when the student says, he liked to study, and the teacher says, oh, so he likes to study? And then the student says, yes, he liked to study. Well, that's a recast, which is, I tried to model the correction. In that case, the student may or may not have really picked up what I wanted to tell them, and that's what they're referring to as student uptake. And an uptake would be if the student says, if I say, oh, he likes to study, then the student says, oh, he likes to study, like they correct themselves. Otherwise, the student may just think that maybe I'm affirming what they said, for example. And explicit correction would be if I just said, you should say he likes, because it's, well, I was going to say because it's third person singular s, but that is more referred to as the metalinguistic feedback is, oh, well, the rule is with third person singular you add an s to the present tense. That's another type. But in terms of just explicit correction, I just very directly say, this was your mistake. And clarification request is when I would say that I want you to try saying that again. You made a mistake there. That wasn't clear. Can you try it again? I could also give a clue and say, oh, be careful with your verb tenses, or don't forget the articles, or are you sure you're saying the right word there? And then that would give them a clue as to what to correct. And or I could repeat their error, like with some sort of questioning intonation, like they say, oh, he liked to study, and I say, he liked to study, and I'm just repeating it, but I'm, with my body language and with my intonation, I'm indicating, are you sure that what you said was right? And when they hear me say it, maybe it'll sound bad to them. Writing is similar. Feedback and writing is. I think writing and feedback is a little easier to understand. Basically, when a student writes something, you can take a red pen and you can correct everything on there. As they say, bleed all over the paper. And a couple problems with that. One thing is, we don't know if, it takes you a lot of time. Also, the student may not look at it. They may just look at their grade. It might be too much information for the student, like too much information. They see that they made a lot of mistakes, but like each mistake almost requires like a little lesson in it. A lot of the mistakes would require a little grammar lesson. Could also be frustrating for the student. They could feel overwhelmed, like, wow, my writing is really bad. So, taking it down, some teachers will just circle the error, and they'll say, like, verb tense, article, spelling, giving an indication or a clue as to what type of mistake they made, and then the student tries to correct it, or they might go to a tutor or go to a writing center, and if they can't correct it themselves, a lot of those mistakes they can kind of correct themselves, which becomes like the next draft, you might say, of the writing. Some teachers will just circle the errors. Once they feel that the student can figure out what type of error it is, then they give less information, just circling, or even like just checking the line number. I've seen teachers just check the line number and there's a mistake somewhere in that line. And then I guess that goes all the way back to some teachers who kind of, they only comment on the content, like the ideas, the organization, supporting ideas, and they don't comment on the grammar at all, because, that could be typically too with a first draft, where the teacher wants to get the content right and then starts working on the, quote, editing, maybe later on. Another way to do it, I've seen teachers who will selectively edit the paper, and they'll just, like, if they want the student to work on articles, or maybe they're teaching articles in the grammar portion of the class, they'll just find all the article mistakes, like the and a. Or if they're working on present perfect tense, and they had this writing that was all about, what have you done in your life, or what countries have you been to, and tell me about, like, all the things you have done this term, and then they just correcting, like, that one verb tense. With free writing and journaling, some teachers also won't correct it because they just want the student to feel free to write without worrying about making mistakes. And you're going to grade it just on how long it is and how much they put into it and their ideas. And then as the students doing free writing, they're not stressed out about every grammar mistake. It kind of works on the fluency. I think there's an argument for that as well. Even though the students usually say, can you, after you give it back, they say, can you please correct all my grammar mistakes? Because, I want to know what they are. I think that's a legitimate question, and I'll usually do that. But I can definitely see the argument for not really correcting those journals and the free writing. Remember, students are always learning too from hearing other students get corrected and hearing your feedback to other students. It's kind of like, I like to tell the students, we're all in this together, you're all in the same boat. So when I correct one student or their pronunciation or grammar, it's really for everyone as well. And so that focuses on other types of feedback. Okay, that's the end of part 4.